Milan, when you arrived, that you didn't expect? One good thing, like something about Milan that you didn't know and surprised you in a good sense, and maybe something that either disappointed you or left you sort of bewildered.
Okay. Where do we start? Well, I mean, it all started for me in quite an insane way, you know, because I had never spent more than 1 or 2 nights in Milan, ever, and then suddenly, in quite a complicated way, which I'll explain to you, but for a whole bunch of reasons, I ended up accepting a TV show in Italy without speaking Italian. The contract said that I had to speak Italian on the show, and I said yes, because I thought, you know, why not? Let's do something scary. And I had to learn Italian in 2 months, and suddenly I find myself...
Hold on a second, I want to know about this. You learned Italian? Well, his Italian is really good. We chose to speak English because for most of you he's not in a more obvious language. But his Italian, as you know from television. You learned to speak Italian in 2 months. 2 months. How many languages do you speak?
I speak French, and I speak Spanish, although I've completely forgotten my Spanish now. So if
Well,
anybody
you
speaks
speak English,
Spanish...
that's your mother tongue, right?
English, yes.
Yeah, because your dad was...
My father's American, my mother's Lebanese, I was born in Beirut. I ended up in... Oh, there's a Lebanese person here. No, I said Beirut and I heard... Yes, there's one! Kifak. Anyway, what was I saying?
Then you went to Paris?
Then we went to Paris because of the war, and we had American passports because of my father, so we were evacuated on a ship. We tried to stay for as long as we could. I was born in '83, which was a really bad time at that in the 25 years of the war. So we ended up in Paris within a kind of transplant community, and then, I mean, war seems to follow me. I don't know, I just laugh, it's not even funny. I mean, but in our life, we always get caught up in a lot of different stories, and anyway, a long story short, my father was a hostage in the first Gulf War, and our lives fell apart again, even though we were living in Paris. Our lives in Paris, because of the war in the Gulf, fell apart, and we ended up again taking all our stuff and moving to London. So the idea of moving from place to place is something that I speak English, but anyone who speaks Spanish, if you try and really learn Italian, you will forget. I mean, maybe not if you're from Madrid, or from Mexico City, but you forget it completely transplanted. It's like some kind of like Men in Black shit. I mean, I forgot all of my Spanish.
What about the Arabic?
Oh, I understand Arabic because all the women gossip about all the men in the family in Arabic. So if you want to know what they're saying about you, and they're all deciding on futures, my brother and I always say that if you want to know what's going to happen to you in your life, you have to understand Arabic, otherwise you're screwed. Because they make all the decisions for you. But why am I telling you this?
No, I'm not. Actually, it's really
none of your business.
I like, you know, you're screwed is great. It's great you speak English, because I know the Italian translation of that, and I'd be uncomfortable, but the screwed sounds great. Okay.
I don't want to say in Italian.
No, don't say that. It's, now, I have at least 4 questions. One I already asked. Did you really learn Italian?
Yes, no, in 2 months, because I have been offered TV shows in other countries, and countries where I do speak the language. And I had said no, and I made a pledge to myself to kind of, instead of, I started alienating myself, I mean, to a ridiculous point. So I made a pledge to do the opposite, to totally scare myself all over again. And this was one of the first things that came up after I made this promise to myself about a year and a half ago. And so I got a teacher, I met all these linguistic teachers. I think I even met someone who teaches at university, at a university here, and also at UCL in London. And then I found this really tough girl called Isabella Costa from Sicily, who had never really left Italy. And I was like, she's going to teach me how to speak Italian. And she lived with me for 2 months everywhere when I was on tour. When we started our lesson, the first lesson was in Tokyo, and every single day, 5 hours.
Hold on, I'm getting confused. So in Tokyo, Japan, is
yeah,
that right?
Yeah, that's where we started. Actually,
to learn Italian with a Sicilian teacher, you started
But she never left Italy, only for she had come to London for a week, and then she meets me. She's like, okay, and then she ends up 3 days later in Tokyo.
No, but I love it. I mean, for you, because you're young and new to Milan, but there's one thing, look at my hair. I know something in life you learn with age. One, that when you have shoes like Mika, you can actually start learning Italian in Tokyo with a girl from Sicily. If you have boring shoes like me, you have to learn I was at a small interpreting with a boring teacher, teaching English in Milan, Dundroff, it's pretty boring. Anyway, by the way, yesterday he asked me, the first time ever, an interviewee asked me,
oh, no.
How are you going to be dressed? I said, what do you mean? And this is where the boldest I can dare is a pink shirt. Now, seriously, you remember the question? The first question is...
something, okay, so I arrive at the apartment in Milan, and everyone leaves the weekends. A lot of people leave Milan, you know, it's kind of like they come, they work, they leave. It's
wrong.
Well, except in certain neighborhoods. And then I discovered Navili, which you will all discover Navili.
They have already.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's amazing. It's a great, I mean, it's just a great vibe. It's something that actually, like all the students from every type of university, young, old, everything, there's areas where people hang out. And they actually hang out, like from 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they'll just hang out. I hate to say this, but in London now, people just, unless you go to your union, you know, to ULU or wherever you go to, like, people they don't have areas where everyone just hangs out on the street. And that, to me, is one of the biggest comforts as I've been on this crazy adventure, going and hanging out in that neighborhood. So that's one example. Also, there's so many secrets in this town. And every door that you scratch at that looks remotely interesting, there probably will be something quite interesting behind it. Does that make sense? It's just
well, you're quoting without knowing one of my 21 motives, you know, take my copy of Corriere della Sera at University, is actually behind every door, that is a surprise. It's in there.
But it's true. In this town, it's true. It really is true. You know, you'll have a fresco by a masterpiece fresco, or you'll have, like, you know, just secret gardens, or you walk down the street and you look to your left and you see like 17 flamingos in a little garden. You're like, what is that?
What? Flamingos?
Yeah. Next to the Villa Necchi, there's a garden with 17 flamingos in it. And they live there all year round.
You counted them?
Yeah, I see them all the time. I go and look at them. And they feed them prawns to keep them pink. You don't know this?
That's you're right, that's bad.
It's a really eccentric town, but it's not obvious. You have to work really hard to kind of...
Don't you think that a director could come up with the Milanese, the Great Beauty? I'm sure you've seen the film, The Great Beauty of Sorrentino, because of flamingos. It's full of flamingos. There are more than 17, by the way. At the end of the... But Milan actually deserves a director like that. And it's going back to you told me one thing that it was new about understanding and without speaking much Italian. It is true, I mean, you're a foreigner after all, that we need Italian...
Thank you for reminding me.
No, it's important, you know, most of them are. It's important that, is it true that we actually speak with our hands and it's helpful for people?
Yes, yes, definitely. So weird that you're talking to me about this. Okay, yes, you speak with your hands. It's actually during the golden age of Italian design, probably a lot of you know this already, but there was a book that was published which was the Dictionary of Hand Language, and actually it's really fascinating. If you can find a copy of it, there's all the ways of moving your hand and what it really signifies, and this is my favorite. Which means it tastes really good, and you'll see people talking in all these codes. This is amazing. Do you know what this means?
I'm afraid I don't know. Do I really want to know?
It means I'm going to get you.
Never seen it.
Like, be careful, I'm going to get you. There's always different type of ways of communicating through your hands. I think it's really cool. I'm really not a good guest for you.
What does this mean? Do you know what this means?
No.
Money.
Oh yeah. I mean, that means money in every single life. I thought it was something. You're Lebanese after all. I mean, they talk with their hands too.
obviously you like Italy. Tell me one thing that everybody...
No, I have to say, I started off hating Italy. I fucking hated it. And I was, because you know, a lot of our life is lived in the Toyota Previa, and we have this amazing Toyota which still functions to this day. It's like 26 years old or something, 24 years old. It's an amazing Japanese car, in case you don't know what it is. It's like a bubble, it's the ugliest, it looks like a cockroach, but just giant. Anyway, we used to drive all around Europe with my mother, and then my career started because I used to get jobs all over Europe, and we used to often drive, and you even slept in the Toyota Previa at the beginning of my job, because I started working when I was 13, and my mother used to offer my singing for free to internet, like to classical music festivals and stuff, just so I could get the jobs, and then we would sleep in the car and drive back home. But to this car, we also used to take it to France and hang out with my aunt there in the south of France, and every summer we would drive down and eat in Italy. And as a 13-year-old boy, my sisters are really beautiful and quite glamorous, and I was awkward and slightly fat, actually. Really, my legs used to rub together, and I used to sweat all the time, and I got treated like shit. And I used to sit there thinking, I hate Italy, I hate Italy. They're so nice to my sisters, but they're so mean to me. That was my impression of Italy.
And when did you change your mind? I hope you change your mind.
I changed my mind. I changed my mind when I was doing a concert. One of my first concerts on my first album, and I had this song that I was singing, and I started halfway through. It was a really high note, and it was a very delicate ballad. So it's a bonus, kind of weird bonus track called Over My Shoulder. And it gets this rubbing harmony with the pedal note, and suddenly everyone starts like whooping and making noise, and I was really upset because I thought I was being booed. And it turns out afterwards, I realized, you know, I was told that they were clapping because they liked it. And as I started doing more and more shows in Italy, I started to rediscover this country, and I started working more, and I started to write for a magazine owned by La Repubblica. Not for yet. And I used to write my columns like about random things, like how I'm obsessed with Anna Nicole Smith and all this stuff. And it just seemed like a place where you could actually express yourself. And it was just, I don't know why, I started to develop a real sense of, I feel quite free in this country to say what I want, to explain myself. I feel like that as well in France, but it's a different feeling here. They're both amazing, but in different ways. I don't know why. And then I started to meet my heroes, like Dario Fo and all these people. And just by doing exactly what you said, by knocking at those secret doors and by constantly trying to scratch down, it's just a country that really does give. It really does. And they're really, like you said, I actually did read your column. And you say they're weary of tourists. And that's absolutely right, they really are. They're weary of lazy tourists. They're weary of tourists who just want to take a picture, who actually really rude to them. It's really funny. But then as soon as you invest yourself a little bit, and you give back a little bit, it's a really collaborative place. So for that, I've just kind of, I keep on liking it more and more.
I have two more quick questions. The first one is, what if, you know, some of the students, newcomers to Milan, would come to you and say, Mika, give me one tip, one thing to do, not one place to see or one good restaurant to eat, but like one mistake not to make, one attitude not to assume, whatever it is. Like, if you ask me, and I won't answer because I've been living in London, I know London well, and there is a couple of things I would say about London. You go to London, you're new to London, don't do this, but maybe do that. They're not interested. They're interested in Milan, in what your tip, your Milan tip is for them. Then I have a second question about tips. Eat. Well, they do.
No, because you'll learn the most about Milan by sitting in a restaurant, I think. Or socialize, and eat and drink, because actually that's really important. It's really, I mean,
You convinced me. Yeah.
because you'll learn a lot about that. It's kind of like France in that regard. In France, you drink and you learn a lot from being in those places. And what else? Read Dario Fo. If anyone hasn't read the Accidental Death of an Anarchist, I mean, if you read Dario Fo, you'll understand it's like an injection of a certain type of delicious Italian culture. And
I like I never seen this thing to explain Italian culture, but the message is clear. I like new metaphors.
it's funny, it's serious, it's absurd, it's really sad, it's uber political. It has a very strange relationship with religion, which is something that you're all going to have to understand as well, which is part of Italian.
Did you see the film Eat, Pray and Love?
Oh, awful.
Okay. Next one was, okay, they're gonna miss the second bit. Eating and love, I think the praying thing, I'm not quite sure. No, I didn't like the film because that dealt with this sort of commonplace about stereotypes of Italy.
Yeah, rubbish.
Which you didn't. The second tip doesn't have to do so much about Milan, but about your career. If I'm not mistaken, for you, your artistic career started with a page on MySpace, am I right? Well, important.
Well, yeah, as making my own records, yeah, it started on MySpace.
Yeah.
It's like, what? MySpace?
Do you remember MySpace?
The Facebook of yesterday. I don't actually know, I don't know what the new thing is now, like Weibo or something.
MySpace. Do you think that, apart from studying, they're going to use Milan, and there are people in here, they are probably good at singing, good at writing, good at taking pictures, they have some artistic quality, each one has got something. Not everyone is Mika, but I'm sure there are people that can sing in here. How would you use social network now if you think you have some artistic talent? And if it's not your main job, you're a student, Milan. Oh, he asked me, say, don't ask, I don't want to know the questions. I want to know everything is so... I know it's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's really hard. How would you use it in what regard? In order to...
I like to take my business, right? My advice is have your own blog, and if everybody hates your own blog, and if you see no one is following, no one is retweeting, no one is tagging you, probably you're not such a good writer. And use social network to test your writing. It's what, not many people do that, but I'm a writer. I'm not an actor.
No, I think you're totally correct. I was actually going to say, what about writing a blog or something like that, for sure. Because, you know, I have some friends and they were actually doing the same thing. They went to study in Paris, however, and they kind of got together and they were like, oh, let's start this blog or this site called livinginparis.com. And it was as simple as that. It was like, how do you get around? Like, you know, and they started writing all the pieces, and it was really reactive and it did really well. And I think now they're buying up all the domains of every city in the world. They're like, cling, this could work. But yeah, I think writing is strange because actually writing for me is one of the most important things in terms of using the internet. I don't know. I don't know how to answer your question.
No, you did answer my question.
I know. I just agreed with you.
I saw Morgan at one point appearing there. My final question...
So, I don't know if you see all this X Factor in Italy. This is also an interesting thing. X Factor in Italy is actually quite cool. And on last year's show, you've got X Factor in every single country in the world now. And it all goes to the giant Wizard of Oz. It's called Simon Cowell. And... they're counting his pennies. And actually here, last year, I was able to put like gossip Befdiro songs and Blur and a punk band, feminist punk band from the 60s called The Slits. And all those kind of songs into X Factor, and we did a Pussy Riot tribute and stuff like that. I guess that says a lot, because I'm just mentioning this because it's playing in the background, about the difference between Italian culture and other places. Because even in commercial television, like, you know, if you put something too cheesy on Italian X Factor, they boot them out that same night. And whatever that's worth, it's certainly indicative of the differences between, let's say, other places with the same format.
How much time you spend in Italy on the whole nowadays?
Well, I spend about 3 days a week here. And then I go back to, I live in Paris as well, and I live in London, because at the moment I'm contracted in 3 different places. So I live a really strange life. I'm constantly checking in luggage and collecting it and getting out. But I spend a lot more time here than I thought, because there are so many projects here that I find really fun and exciting that I'm doing, that I'm working on. I'm a fan, so it's easy to spend more time.
Those slides, I don't know if you maybe you were back there, you didn't see, there was those really interesting slides about the attitude towards Milan of Italian students from outside Milan and foreigners, not Italians, studying in Milan. And I'll sum them up from you. The foreigners thought that Milan was actually safe, a safe city.
Yeah.
The Italian didn't think it was that safe. It's interesting. And I think the foreigners get it right.
I think it is safe. I find it safe. Totally safe. Safer than London, that's for sure.
Then the Italian, they come to Milan and they think the food is okay, but it's nothing to write home about. While foreigners say Milan food is super. That's not predictable. The thing that I found, the foreigners say that it's rich, dynamic, and not really well organized. The Italians say that it's chaotic, it's cool, and it's grey, because quite of our fellow Italians coming to study Milan, maybe they come from the south. But there is one, and this is very, literally my last question before we go to the next sort of part of our chat. Only 10% of Italian students coming to Milan say they want to go back to their original cities, places. I think 30 or 40% they say they want to leave Italy. Studying, I'm talking about Italians. Italians they want to leave Italy and just go abroad. How do you see this? As you know, in London there are 300,000 Italians, huge. In Paris there are, in Germany, from doctors to restaurant to business to academia, therefore. Do you think that all these young Italians, many of them, going abroad, is a good thing altogether, or don't you think, or do you understand why people of my generation are a little worried that all the young people are going not to come back? Don't you think that Italy may lose a whole generation if we don't provide them proper job and opportunities?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's easy to sound melodramatic when you're saying, oh, they're going to lose an entire generation, but when you actually look at, they're trying to convince Italians to declare themselves in London, because it's the second biggest community or nationality, isn't it, now in London, is Italians?
Yes, I think after the French. I think London is the number 8 Italian city. As big as Bologna.
And it's insane. I mean, exactly, as big as Bologna, that's what I've heard. When you've got a town in London, a city in God, that sounds like such a Londoner. A city in London, when you've got a city in the UK that is as big as, considered as big as Bologna just because of its Italian population, it's quite terrifying. I mean, for two reasons. Firstly, I think that London is an amazing place, but it is in a state of suspended identity at the moment. That's what I believe. I think it's sold itself out in many different ways, not to students, unfortunately, because students have quite a hard time now in London, but to lots of other less salacious people with a lot of money, and it's just opened its doors in a way that other European cities have been a bit more resistant about. But also I think that it's sad that, I always say that our generation, I'm 31 years old, and I look at my brother who's studying at the Architecture Association in London, my sister was at Central St. Martin's in London. And, you know, it's a different generation. We will never know the boom. I believe that we will never experience a real boom. We will never have that luxury, ever. Ever. Those days are gone. And I'm an optimistic pessimist, which kind of makes me a realist, in my opinion. But, you know, we will never experience a boom, and that's gone. So the days of the Italian decadence of the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, and it's kind of scary to think that I don't think that will happen again. I mean, I'm talking across Europe, really. I don't know if you agree with me, but we live in very different times to the ones that our parents have lived in. Especially when you come from a country like the UK that used to have a lot more kind of, you know, support for students. And a lot of that has been taken away, and we're expecting to have a lot more of it taken away from us. I think it's sad. I think when you lose generations because they feel like they don't have enough opportunity, I think it's crazy. But then again, it's part of, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. So we better get used to it.
Now, on a lighter note, no, thank you for your honesty. I
know, it was just one negative comment after another. I just realized what
no,
I did.
No, it's not. I think it's
have fun! Such an irony, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
No, but they are smart enough to know that you come here, everything is fine, Europe. Yeah, in fact, you just say the rents in Milan are cheaper than in London. That's a good message. Because London is so expensive for students.
But wait a minute, look at me. I mean, I'm a proof that actually it's a good thing that people are moving around. You know, I think it's a really good thing that we're less afraid to transplant ourselves and make the most of another country and even another university. I mean, 3 of my sisters studied at Beijing in Beijing for years. They just decided to go and live in Beijing at the age of 18. So, you know, I think it's, and I am someone who is testament to that. I'm fearless when it comes to borders and languages that I don't speak. I will throw myself in. And there's enormous opportunity that comes out of that.
Listen, it's important. You know Matteo Renzi, have you ever met? I like to see the two of you together somehow. Did you?
I don't know where the editor-in-chief is.
Eh?
Where's the editor-in-chief?
No, they're lovely. I don't know why. I think it makes sense. I mean, first of all, I can see you telling him that he is actually an older man, and is in his...
He's not old.
He's older than you.
Well, yeah, but he's not old.
But he's the Prime Minister. You are somehow old. He must be. No, seriously. Have you ever met him?
I've never met Renzi. I've watched, we did the TV show, the same TV show once, and I was observing him and observing how he handles people. You know, it's definitely a new generation of politicians.
No, he's quite amazing. He can make Angela Merkel laugh. Do you see this? Berlusconi didn't have this.
I like, but she always laughs. She's always like kind of giggling.
Not with Berlusconi, trust me. I'll tell you later why. Now, I have 21 reasons why coming to study in Milan is a great idea for people from outside Milan, from elsewhere in Italy, from Europe, from the world. And there are so many of you here. And I won't go through the list of 21. We got 5, Mika,
okay.
And I'd like you to comment, because I will just see one by one. So they are both in Italian and English. So I'll read, well, let's see. Perché Milano in fondo sospetta dei turisti, preferisce chi lavora o chi studia, o almeno fornisce una buona interpretazione delle suddette attività. Because deep down Milan is suspicious of tourists. Milan prefers people who work and study, or at least make a good stab at working or studying. Would you agree with that? Are we suspicious of tourists?
Yeah. Yes, well, yes, we spoke about that already, I mean, for sure. I think so.
Let's go for number 2. something which concentrates the mind. How about that? Are you convinced?
You're a cyclist. You are a cyclist.
No, I'm not.
You are a cyclist.
Well, yes, on the cover of the book. But you know, you do things, you know. I seen, did you see his video, Boom Boom Boom? You have a cowboy, a American revolutionary, whatever, 007. I can be a sidekick on a book cover.
Yeah, but, okay, but, you know, cowboy, 007, all that. But